Call this meeting to order.
Very good. Well, welcome. It's great to have, the committee back together and newly constituted with two new members. And so, as we both talked about, in our separate conversations, this meeting, we're hoping to really get more of have as an organizational meeting. And I can take this off if it's clear.
Oh, absolutely.
As well. So, want to make sure that from a staff perspective that we are providing the information on a monthly basis for you all to move forward and to know kind of what your goals are for the committee, so we can better kind of structure our staff time as well as resources to meet those goals. So really, beyond the welcome, the first item was the committee organizational items. I'll pull the agenda back up here. But we have, I wanted to pull up on the website, as far as the description, just so that everybody, and you all, I'm sure you've seen this. Let's go to council committees. Of council. This is really the description that has guided this committee, and we both had, kind of, I think you all are both kind of curious about, well, what is the area that we work in, and this is really what has been guiding us, so basically that it regards development and vitality of the town's commercial districts in general, but it has really had that focus towards downtown and Cambria. So as much as, Kitty, you all want to kind of redefine that, I mean, just to say all the commercial areas is could be a bit unwieldy to tackle, but I mean, we could try to figure out ways to do that with still an emphasis on Cambria and downtown. And as you know, it would be some of the projects have kind of kind of grown over the downtown area, as well as Cambria, for instance. The central business looked at the love sign, as we talked about, at the aquatic center, and as you pointed out, the Public Arts Advisory Board is really, it reports to central business, but is really looking at the entire town, again with a focus towards downtown and Cambria, but really looking at projects that could benefit the entire town. So we have the areas that historically there was a committee in the 2015 timeframe that was called the Central Business Advisory Committee. I never worked with them, but they had outside members on it as well. And then at 2017, that committee kind of had dissolved, and then the Central Business Committee was just the two council members, and that worked pretty well the last go around, and so that's kind of what we have today. So you may hear CBAC as a historic committee term. That committee is no longer a functioning committee. It certainly could be something to explore, but I do think, there is a value to having a working committee of council as well. Those are just kind of just general thoughts. With that, I think I'd like to go ahead. I have the maps, and I can pull these up as well. So just to give you an idea. Thank you.
I'll pass the one for Casey.
Here's downtown.
Thank you.
Okay, so you have a Cambria, so I will give you the downtown, and you have a downtown, so I'll give you the Cambria.
Okay.
All right, so this really stemmed from 2015, and I can pull these up as well.
I noticed this one doesn't even have the rec center, the aquatic center in here.
Correct.
Because those, we have considered those Midtown, then, fact that we have the farmer's market, and then the aquatic center within that range. I personally would like to see if there was, if anybody else would like to add that up to this. Because I really think it should be part of our, even included with the downtown Christiansburg. Or
So
central
kind of,
business.
like, with the placemaking plan, you know, last time we did have an area of Midtown, and I think you had a copy of that at one time. I'm happy to provide other copies, but we do have, I have printed out, copies of the PowerPoints that were given to central business, at that time, and so I'm happy to share that, those with them, but, so are you thinking that maybe it would be good to look at, you know, Midtown as well first?
I
you know?
personally feel that at least those two facilities, mostly because they are town-owned,
Right.
and the fact that we have the farmer's market inside well, obviously it's outside the rec center, but we do events there, and we're doing all kinds of things. I think it fits with what our mission is, which is events and things like that. Don't you agree, Marty?
So what I was thinking here, take this. You know, the description says commercial districts, not necessarily historic districts, which we look at with Cambria and downtown, but it's a broader umbrella than that. And so, you know, I was thinking along the same lines of looking more at Midtown and Roanoke Street corridor. Those two in particular, if those can be lumped in with what this committee's scope is, I think that would give us a better, I think that we could look at that in a different lens as we move forward, that goes beyond just downtown and Cambria. And I'm glad Ellie's here too as a representative of downtown and DCI, and my hope is that we can kind of also start to form and identify some champions of these different areas as well. That was something that I think that we could look at with the Roanoke Street corridor and some others in those spaces as well. So that was a piece that I wanted to kind of maybe look at and re-examine, and I think Joanna's right about Midtown as well, given that the Aquatic Center and the Rec Center are key programming pieces of what we do, and I think can help those areas as well. I think so. I think there's a benefit to look beyond what we've been looking at as just the historic districts to date.
I agree with what you're saying. I also think that there is another second piece. As far as the town, we're kind of dividing different chunks. We're dividing the Cambria side, the Roanoke side, the marketplace, the uptown side, and then downtown side. And I think this committee or this central business can really put all of these places together in a way that we can all work together. And I personally feel like the reason why I want to add the aquatic center and the rec center to this map of the downtown area is just because of the events part. Now, there is another part that I want to look into it, which is exactly what you're saying, the commercial side. And I think that we need to be very conscious about what we do in here so we don't make the rest of the town feel like left out. And I feel like central business is not just central business just for the center of the town, but I think it can bring everybody together in a way that is not discriminational against them, in a way that is, we don't care about what you do at the marketplace. We don't care about what you do at the Roanoke area. I think we need to have a representative from each of those areas. Maybe there is a business owner that would be, you know, wanting to come to these meetings and say, hey, you know what, I really, really like what you guys are doing. Maybe there is something that they really want in that area of town, and maybe we can facilitate that. What are your ideas as far as like having maybe a divide central business within the group, but have different things that we're working towards?
Yeah, I like the idea of things coming back to this group with, again, champions of those areas. And I think that I think that allows us to get a little bit more ears to the ground about what's going on in those areas, and that we can better assess what the needs are of the business community based on those locations. The other piece that I'm really interested in, and I think Benjamin, you have some background in this, is, well, Ellie, you do too, is economic development. And I think this committee has kind of looked at Cambria and downtown, and I think it's kind of lost that piece over time, and we need to think about things that are more related to planning as we look down the road, and how that kind of can spur further economic development. I've always said I think that the town, I'd love to see eventually the town have an economic development manager of sorts, and I think the closest person to that is probably going to be you at this point, that has some of that background in play. And so if we can look at those pieces and how we're looking at these different areas and a rising tide raises all boats, we're looking at it from that perspective, I think we get that. I think changes the scope of what this committee is going to be, rather than talking about, what does our clock look like downtown, and what does, more of those things that are cosmetic of the sort. I think that we can kind of take a different approach, and I think that would be helpful for this committee, and how it is addressing the needs of the business community across these different commercial areas.
So as far as expanding areas, so Midtown is fairly well defined, from Cambria or the rec center to downtown. So if I'm hearing correctly, you're not saying expand downtown necessarily, but for the purview of this committee, also look at Midtown. Well,
I think if we were to add up Midtown to it, I think it will make it. I personally feel that if we were to have representatives from other areas, that will feel left out. Mm-hmm. Because now you're emphasizing these places, but you're not really adding everybody else into the cake. So I personally feel like the only reason why I want to add those two facilities is because of what central business stands for, which is events and coordination of those things. Mm-hmm. Unless you see some other place that we can have events that is not going to be, I just don't see, there is Christians for the Institute.
Yeah, right. You have, and the high school is a central, it's a community gathering place as well. Exactly. So there's a number of places. It's got a nice mix of, of those types of uses, those public uses as well as commercial uses in that corridor, and I think.
I think if you do that too, Andrew, there is a lot of things that come into my mind right now. Is like, if you do that, then there is the Moose Lodge, then there is like Kiwanis Park, and then there is like other areas in town that are going to want the same treatment, and so how do we keep a balance? Whereas, are we just going to do this just to take care of the town properties? Is it going to be just for events that the town wants to plan? Is this something that I personally see this group being more of, let's serve the majority of the population? That maybe there is a chance that the marketplace will have I'm more than sure they're going to have spaces for gathering places. But who is to say we have, some dances or music down there too one day? I don't know.
And we'll have the park there as well.
Well, there you go. So we got.
So, I mean, and I think that area is pretty well defined as uptown. So I think our commercial areas start to fall into pretty, manageable areas. So if we say, we have, the uptown area, which is, we could get into where exactly that ends, but I would say that probably goes on the south side. I mean, it goes to the northern boundary line, but it also goes on the other end to probably Sheets, and then the Midtown picks up after that point. And then you have Midtown down North Franklin. Then you have really, Radford. Radford is, surprising because, in my mind, I think, it's a really long distance between, the start of Radford Street and the town boundary line. But it's really not, like compared to Roanoke Street. Roanoke Street is just, has really different compositions. They go from rural to kind of more heavy intensity commercial, like with the auto sales components to really outside of downtown, where it starts to feel where it could have more of a downtown feel.
Right.
So maybe we start to look at those areas and bringing in representatives from those areas. And I think we can't forget about West Main Street as well, because I do think there's opportunities around, Route 8 Donuts, as well as now that we own the land on the opposite side of Exit 114.
Can you go back to
We
the
don't own the
mission
land,
of
but
Christians
that's part of
for
town.
central business again?
Absolutely.
And we'll
Yeah.
read it again because
Sure.
I think within the name, so right there at the beginning, it tells you the development and vitality of the town's commercial district. I mean, right there, it is telling you all the districts. It's not just saying downtown.
Yeah.
Historically, this community has both. The farmers market, which is at the rec center, special events, which, that can be anywhere around town, and then the town's commercial areas, which it really defines you anywhere. This, even within the name, is not telling you downtown.
Right. Yeah, and I think the Central Business Advisory Committee at that point in time, there wasn't as, I think, I don't know if it wasn't on purpose, but I know folks that own businesses in Cambria did not feel like they were being reached out to as much. I think we have done that fairly well, over like with the facade program and just with the placemaking plan and such, more recently than ever. But that was a thing back in 2015 where Cambria kind of felt forgotten, and there probably is some of those feelings still, but I think we've done a pretty good job at trying to make sure that whenever we talk about downtown, we talk about Cambria. So I think the Central Business Advisory Committee made a really strong effort to make sure that they knew that Cambria was part of what they were looking at as far as building up the business districts.
The early committee too used the word downtown a lot.
Yeah.
That was one reason to dissolve it and change.
Well, I do think too, because of the fact that Cambria used to be the downtown area of Christiansburg at the very beginning, it really, it's stupid for us not to even make it be part of the downtown area. Do we have any, I know that arts committees, the art committee, advisory committee, they bring out things to us and everything to discuss, but do we have the bikes and trails committee and maybe even the sidewalks committee doing any work with us? Because the one thing that I really see if we are going to, which it brings me to another subject, but it's really tidying up of what our mission is. And I think one of those things is how do we continue to beautify the Cambria areas and other areas around town by providing as many sidewalks as we can? And how can we continue to do that in a way that it makes it look and appear like the rest of the town? Like, for example, the lights and, for example, the flower, you know, things that we have around town. So I think kind of bringing it all together, because it just feels like we're so divided.
Well, I do think there is a value in trying to create a unique feel for each of the areas as part of that destination, the placemaking opportunity. Like with the Midtown area, those were some of the recommendations that were made. Was, you know, how do you do potentially a unique ornamental lighting for that area that would then set that area apart from you know, from downtown, because it is different when you're driving, you know, 35 miles an hour, and it should still be pedestrian friendly, but it is going to have a different feel. You're probably not going to want the buildings right up on the street like you would in a downtown area, you know, in that portion of North Franklin Street. But so it is going to still have a different feel to it, I think. But what are some of those elements? So I do think, you know, like you said, the beautifying is really important. But does it need to have, you know, brick soldier course sidewalk all the way up to the rec center? And that, I mean, that would be a conversation to have. But that, you know, those are the elements we want to have all in downtown and in Cambria. But we're not, you know, not necessarily maybe expanding that.
I think that wouldn't be necessarily a bad idea, because the reality is we're not doing bricks in every part of the sidewalks even. We're just doing the main where the handicap ramps are and things like that. It's not like you're using this as a uniform for the whole thing, which I am, well, but let's continue what our mission is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think our mission will be definitely unify everybody through the town's commercial district. So I think one of the biggest things for us right now will be trying to get someone from, and it can be several people from each of those districts, to bring them over here and say, hey, what would you like the town to do for you, or what can we do together to make the town a better place? So I think that would be my first thing.
In the About the Committee section, which really kind of functions as a de facto mission statement, you know, would you like to start to add, you know, including the different commercial areas that you...
Well, I mean, in the statement it says that. What do you think, Benjamin, and what do you think, even Ellie and Marty Gordon, do you guys have any ideas about adding some of these districts into the central business?
I think it would help with transparency and also with communication.
I like that. Good job.
Committee is a subcommittee of council.
Correct.
Yeah.
So council created.
Mm-hmm.
Council have a specific intent that they wanted it to just look at central business district, or their intent that they wanted it to broader scope beyond just the downtown. And I don't know the answer.
To the best of my knowledge, it was created really with an eye towards downtown, but then at a certain point, it became more looking at the commercial areas. But to be honest, we have really focused more towards downtown and Cambria, and that we could bring that back and change this section to reflect, you know, more just downtown and Cambria.
I don't think it would be a good
But I
idea.
do think anything that we would come up with, you all would probably want to share with council about, you know, just to clarify, this is what we looked at this and we really think, you know, we could better serve
Right.
what it has said on our website and what we think is needed for the town.
Don't you think that the throwing thing too, as far as the downtown area, was just because that's where the majority of the events happen, from the town of Christiansburg, and I mean,
Sorry, Ellie.
If you wouldn't mind, just with downtown, because events do happen downtown, but the reason they started to happen downtown is because we wanted people to see that they could start businesses downtown and they would be popular, because what we hear from citizens is downtown is dead, no one's here, do something about it, please, and that's what we've heard, is we want people to come downtown, which is why the downtown has been a focus. Sort of nationally, downtown is a focus, but I think your idea of having committees from different parts of the town is brilliant. I would love to see not just CCI as the community placemaking group, I'd love to see a Cambria group, Roanoke Street has so much economic development potential that's totally untapped. And if we can have these groups and focus on the connectivity between them, I feel like we would really be much stronger as a community. So I would personally love to see, and I think it would enhance what DCI does and what everyone else does, and we would be happy to share our model with other people if, you know, like, we're a group that's been around for a while, and we'd love to see other groups pop up and develop their places into something special where people want to come. The reason we focus on downtown is because all the models say focus on downtown, and then the citizens of Christiansburg have complained about a dead downtown. They don't complain about a dead midtown, they complain about traffic, or they, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's why the focus is downtown. It's not really about events. But I love everything that you all are saying. The only other thing I might add is separating out community development and economic development. As we're talking about events and things and bringing people together, that seems more of a community development function, which can be economic development too. But for economic development, we're focusing on business growth, which probably, it can coincide with the events, like I said, but it doesn't always coincide with the events, so.
And I think, go ahead, Marty.
I was gonna say, in sitting in this room, I probably have more history to know what the original committee was all about.
Oh, please.
The Central Business Advisory Committee was set up for two things to start with. One, we still had retail in Christiansburg when they started, was trying to keep the retail here. The second part was trying to create an atmosphere to bring more in. So things have changed. And I think that was the idea of the council too when they got rid of the advisory committee, so to speak. And I think there was some downtime in between before this committee was reformed. Because if you do remember, there was originally a farmers market committee, there was a different committee for this and that, and it was all pulled into this committee when it was formed. But things have changed, you know, we've had to. And, you know, I think the group needs to take the next step and do some things differently, because when it was formed, it was a whole different atmosphere and environment in downtown Christiansburg. And that's the reason that word downtown was used when it said central business. Central business doesn't mean downtown. That's the key here.
And that's sort of what I was getting at, I think we need to redefine this and see what that definition is and how these commercial districts have that synergy within one another as we're working forward. And I think, I like that they're all uniquely, they're all unique, you know, in their own sense. And the sidewalks in downtown and Cambria don't have to be what you see in Uptown or anywhere in that area. But the more that we can find pieces that get to that connectivity and that synergy among these different areas and the stakeholders within them, I think that really is, I personally think that should be a new aim for this committee that is not so ingrained on something that is just downtown or just Cambria, because I think we have some awesome groups and stakeholders and individuals that can help us bring all of that together under one roof, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and when we did the placemaking plan, we had a great participation by businesses and property owners in Midtown. And so there are folks that are just waiting to be asked.
Right.
Like to be
Yeah, I think so.
And so, in the interest of time, it sounds like there's a desire to kind of rework this area. So, I think it would be hard to try to write that live here today, but if you all would want to give me some pointers, and for some direction, I can take those and then start to develop, kind of circulate back out to you all so that we could get something formalized for next meeting.
I think I agree with what you're saying. I'll probably send you an email with those. But looking at this, I think we need to keep this now for Central Business Committee as a whole, but this more for the facade grants that we're doing for now. Who is to say that in another year or so we decide to extend it a little bit larger, because we don't necessarily, I personally feel like it's wonderful what we have done in Cambria and downtown, but I am getting the sense that there's so many people you can help, but I think the fact that we're kind of helping the same places several years on the road, and I don't think, I don't have to disagree with, you know, I don't disagree with helping them. I think it's fantastic, but I think there's a lot more places that need help, you know?
And that was a concern of a lot of central business last time, because we didn't get it was during, you know, kind of height of the pandemic, but we didn't get a lot of, you know, a lot of applications. So I do think that that's something in the next couple months that I'll need to bring back to you all to decide.
Well, I do think that we really need to relook at that, because how many applications did you get the last time?
Well, yeah, I think we did get 5.
5.
Yeah, but we had gotten in the teens, I want to say 13, 15, the first time, so.
The first time.
Yeah.
But then you help, how many about do you get, that you actually help last year? It was, I know it was at least 2 or 3.
We were able to help 5, yeah, and I
You were
had
able
those,
to help 5.
yeah.
So
and
I mean, that's pretty impressive. Now, one of the things I don't want to see us doing is helping those same places
Right.
time after time, because what's going to happen is the rest of the town is going to start complaining, well, you helped the same person. And this already came out. There were several comments that people made to me the other day. They're like, well, why do we want to even apply? It's the same people that get it all the time. And I don't want people to feel even that way, that
I wish they had applied.
it's always it's always
Yeah.
the same people, and we're out of the district maybe,
Yeah,
or
and
maybe,
that's a.
and you know,
that's a
and so do we really have to expand even that just because of that, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's all on the table for you all to discuss.
Okay, so those are really good things that we can think about for the next meeting, and actually send you some emails.
I mean, it would be great if you all had a few things, if you would want me, you know, that there was consensus, you know, the committee of direction that you would want to go. I just want to make sure that I have consensus, you know, before I start to get something together to send back to you all.
I think right now we're all over the place. I
Yeah.
think one of the things that we really made sure today was that we definitely want to have some representation from all the different districts. And I think that's the biggest thing that we want to make sure that it happens.
Okay, from the different districts. This does not say anything about economic development.
Yeah.
Well, I think that comes with
I
it.
mean, explicitly.
Right.
Is there so?
And that, I would like to see more of an emphasis on what we're doing. I mean, Ellie made a distinction of community development and economic development, and I think this committee needs to be mindful of both. So I think, and this committee has done a very good job, I think, over the years of community development. I mean, it's always about, you know, our events and our arts, which again, all segues into economic development, but I would like, you know, to look more at, and that was the reason I passed on that USDA grant, you know, just looking at, you know, whether it's feasibility studies and just looking at ways in which we can be a bit more mindful of what we can do in that aspect going forward, I think. So I think if we can, I think we need to juggle both of those items and be mindful of that going forward.
Wasn't it, I may be incorrect
This is
about
my
it.
only copy, but this is.
Wasn't like the one grant that we got from several years ago from the rural, development, wasn't it like almost nothing? It was like, what was it?
Oh, well, we did get shoot, what was her name?
I am trying
We did receive a $25,000 grant.
Yeah, that was it. I mean, it was a
And
lot.
we had a lot of planning that came up with the, you know, that was centered around the farmer's market, and we ended up using that towards the purchase of the mobile stage. Was how we used that money.
Is that something we can apply each year?
I mean, there could be, that was really more towards, again, you know, that was a program that was focused towards farmers markets and creating that local, you know, the circulation of local agriculture in the, you know, for the town. This really, what Casey provided me really is more how do we work with local businesses and entrepreneurials, and there are other state programs too we can look at for startup programs and things of that
There's
sort.
like this women's, grants too that you can apply for first owner or whatever, female and stuff too.
So
I
would that
think
be
we can look at that in a different way now. I think one of the biggest problems that we currently have in the downtown area as far as bringing something else than food or places or retail places downtown, I think one of the biggest issues that we have here is we have a lot of office spaces downtown. And I think a lot of it is because obviously it makes money.
Mhm.
Obviously, you always have someone in there. Those medical places always are filled. You don't have a lot of the food industry down there because it's not easy accessible. And with COVID and everything, that became worse. How do you think we can, we have, and you probably can tell about this, we have a lot of owners of properties downtown that are quite wealthy, and they own the majority of the downtown. And it's really hard for people like, I mean, we barely got in there, and you know, like, just personally, just talking from our experience, it was really hard to even get a building and get it off the ground, and we had no money. Now, for a lot of people, it seems so much easier just to buy a building, purchase it, and rent it out for $5,000 a month, like several people are doing. And it's a commercial, well, it's for an office or for the magistrate's office, for example. Those places will never be what they used to be before because the amount of money they bring in. They're either, you know, medical offices or all kinds of offices, which is what's going to make the money. A bakery downtown, and not talking bad about our bakeries downtown because I think they're, you know, the Mockingbird is still there and Brew Coffee is doing well. But I do feel like it's a hard environment to be in.
I think stronger relationships with the property owners, understanding why they keep buildings and don't, you know, there are several unoccupied buildings downtown. You know, the town can't tell a property owner what to do with their building, but maybe getting to know that property owner, understanding why they're holding on to an old decrepit building, and maybe if there's a better use for it. So I think relationships with property owners.
Oh, yeah.
I think also enforcing some of those things. I've heard from business owners that have been started new businesses in downtown, and things have gone badly for them because their property owners have not been straight with them about the quality of the building. So I think there's some protections that some of our downtown business owners need to have. There's also some innovative ideas that could go with this rural development program, like there's this idea of micro retail. So like a lawyer's office doesn't need to have an office front. What if you incentivize that property owner to build out their space so the first 20 feet are a little bakery or a little retail shop, and then the rest of the building and upstairs is the lawyer's office. So it's still the lawyer's office, but from the front, it looks like it's this little micro retail space. So that you could have incentives where property owners could transform their space so it looks like, you know, you have these little micro spaces that are subsidized or incentivized that are low cost. You could even have like business competitions where you would have these spaces that could be like rotating every month. You could have a new business, like pop-up shops. There's a lot of innovative ways, I think, if you get the property owners on board to do some of these things. There's lots of innovative ways and examples, I think, to get more vibrant businesses downtown, but it takes public investment because you've identified the problem is we have a big market failure in downtown, which is the Everett Courthouse. And so all the businesses downtown serve the courthouse, which is great economically, right? But it's not good for other businesses.
And Ellie, I think I agree with what you're saying, but there is another factor into this. I think one of those parts is the town's laws, restrictions, as far as when it comes down to you having, and Andrew can probably tell you a little bit more about this, you being able to have you cannot just have a restaurant downtown. You cannot just have a bakery store without having a lot of, from my understanding, you have to have water sprinklers, you have to have a lot of other things. Isn't that correct? If you were to have a mixed space.
We follow the state building code.
Exactly. So there is like a lot of building codes that will not necessarily allow you to do that because we are an old town. And I can tell you in Columbia, you can do that all day long, you know, but over here, we're talking about Christiansburg, Virginia, where my office, I would love to have a bakery downtown. I can't because, you know, there's all kinds of restrictions that you have to follow. Will we have the money to update? Once again, like, will some people have the money to update those buildings to follow all those codes? Probably not. And so,
Which is why the public investment is important. If these things aren't happening on their own, that's when the town or the government has to come in and spend money, I think.
That's an excellent point. Piggyback on what you said, another way you can come at that too is by looking at the zoning downtown. Have things that are deactivating the space, like offices or something that's closed, you know, in the evenings, on weekends, and just becomes void. You can look at those and do you want to allow those uses, or do you even want to zoning rather than just being horizontal on the ground, vertical as well. So, for instance, you may want uses like that on the upper floors and preserve that ground floor space for things that contribute to the vitality.
I think that's exactly, at least a part of downtown Blacksburg, I think enforces just that, if I'm not mistaken, which, but I do think we're getting a little off topic here on the agenda, and I think this is a great thing, for example, within downtown that we need to look at further.
Yeah.
And Marty said communication, that's what we're talking about. We're talking with these property owners, these building owners, and that becomes its own meat and potatoes of something that is looked at within that district. But for the sake of time, I do want us to stay on topic as well, because Marty, I know you have some updates, and Ellie, since you're here, I know it wasn't primed, but if you have CCI updates too, I'd love to hear all that before we get out of here today.
I actually have a 1 o'clock meeting in Plattsburgh, so
All right.
I've got to run back, and I do not have any
Yes,
CCI
okay.
updates, but we're hosting.
can we have
officer-
your information, or is there a phone number we can call you, or?
Yep, I can give you my number. And my email.
I'll give you my card really quick, and then you can just save it, and then send me a text or whatever.
Sure.
So you're electing new officers?
We're electing officers tomorrow, and then working on some board recruitment. So tomorrow we'll be talking about our plan of work for the year. We are hoping to continue doing the things that we do well, recruit more people to the board, finish up the pocket park and food truck rodeo are the main things on our agenda. But I need to talk to you, Marty, because a lot of food trucks went out of business, and I'm wondering if they've come back in business or if we need to retool food truck rodeo, because I don't know if we're going to be able to find.
Talk to Rachel, we just put it listed.
Okay, all right. So those are my updates.
And Rachel Benson
update you.
is not here this month, but she will be here in future months to update you.
Ellie,
on
do you
special
have
events.
any names of the grants, that maybe the town can help, the business owners
Yeah.
apply for, to see
Yeah,
if we can follow on those, codes and things like that?
Uh-huh. My main job, I work at Virginia Tech in the Center for Community and Economic Engagement, so I write a lot of grants for other places in Virginia. So I'd be happy to look some things up and send them to
Okay,
you.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I love getting state money.
Very good at it, too.
Thank you all for letting me join you.
Absolutely, thank you for coming out. Anyway, so what were we?
So as far as, as far as looking at the, kind of the description of the committee, yeah, I can put together some language that talks about the representation from each area and so.
Should we put a post online about advertising to see if we can get representation from those different districts? Or is that something we gotta ask council for approval before we put it out?
Well, it may be good, yeah, once you all have, consensus on your mission statement or, description of the committee, then it's something that you'd want to take to council, and I think we could move forward from there. That's what I'd recommend.
And Andrew, I think it's gonna be our charge to help you put that together, and we can do that, and have, so for February, we have some clear definition for this
Yeah.
committee, and also for council to know what the direction of this committee is.
Can we please add Benjamin and Marty Gordon to our conversation so we can actually come up with a plan? I think Marty and Benjamin have a lot to bring to the table, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add Ben. Marty, I'll leave off as farmer's market manager at this point, because I do want to try to keep it at the larger level, you know, of the committee.
Well, Marty, if you have any ideas on how we can change the description, things like that, and make sure that we can incorporate all these districts within the central business, I will love and I'm welcoming your opinions.
Okay, but I do ask that you work through me if possible.
Absolutely, well,
Yeah.
he can copy you on it,
Yeah.
so.
I do think that will just help us streamline, you know, the process, and to try to get the information to you all in a timely fashion so that we can move forward, because I don't think we want to spend, you know, all of our time on the mission statement, you know, because that's not, you know.
Well, that was not just a mission statement, that was just trying to make sure that we get those businesses involved in what we're doing. And then, obviously, I think that was well spent time. We learned a lot from Ellie and everybody else in here. So let's move on. I think it's time to move on to farmer's market. Is that all right, or?
So, the mission, let's see, so just so that if you all think it would be better, right now I have in my notes that we would look to add representation from each area, as well as statements of economic development and community development in here, and potentially start to describe it. Are there other things that you all would want to just send to me in a separate email that we could be working on, or is that kind of it
I
for
think
now?
that fits
I think that's
everything.
the gist,
Okay,
and
all
we
right.
can talk about what that exactly looks like, but that's, yeah.
Excellent,
Thank you, Andrew.
sure. Yeah, so as far as, the same meeting date and time was another item. I just want to get consistency.
Does that work with you guys?
The only reason I would suggest, I mean, I think we keep it for now, and I just, if we get to a point where we're working with people and these stakeholders, it's most receptive
Later in
to
the
me at a
afternoon.
later time. I think we
Yeah.
can always reevaluate that.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, that's fine.
And then as far as monthly updates, you assume like you'd want to hear about the farmer's market, special events, Hickok Street project, Public Arts Advisory Board. Am I missing anything else? I mean, there'll be other items such as, you know, the town clock and the camera that we'll bring in, but didn't know if there were any other items that I was missing in that list.
I think with, let's at least get something done, which is the camera. I talked to Mark Season last night, and, last night we talked about it. He was in full approval of having a camera downtown, so I think that's awesome. Now how we point that camera, just be very conscious about how we put it in and where we install it, to make sure that there is not a whole bunch of people calling in 911 all the time to tell us about somebody running a red light. But I think everything else, he was pretty, you know, he actually thought we were putting cameras all through the downtown, which,
Well,
I don't
I
need
think
it.
it was an old plan from about 6 years ago. Yeah.
I
so,
know,
yeah,
but I'm
yeah,
just
yeah,
saying,
right,
he
yeah.
really thought it was just gonna be for police and town to have information about the downtown, but, I think I'd really like to move forward with the camera thing. You have heard about the camera, right?
Mhm.
And I
How
can
do
pull
you feel
together
about
some
it?
thoughts to kind of present to you all next time with just more information.
Okay.
With the
Well, I
history.
just really feel like we really need to move forward with at least that item to bring it to town council so it eventually gets done. Because $3,000 is not a lot of money, and you guys have been working on this for quite a bit. Is there anything else that you need from us as far as the camera thing goes?
Well, I mean, just the exact cost, and I want to give you an idea of the monthly cost as well.
What was that for, do you
I
know?
need to look that up.
Okay. Is that something we can get over an email?
Yeah, certainly, yeah.
Okay. Because I think it's important that we at least put that in there so we know, at least Valerie has it under the budget. And where it's under $10,000, I don't even think it needs to be a budget amendment for this, right?
Right. I mean, we would probably, if it was something that the committee does not have its own budget, but if it was something that they wanted to spend money on, I would approach Randy and ask if you felt like that's something that we could spend tourism dollars on, is how we funded, a number of projects.
How do you feel about that, Casey?
I think I'd like to know exactly what the cost is, and then just get a yay or nay on it, and, address that one way or another.
Yeah, but we can probably even do that over emails and then find out.
We can, if Andrew thinks it's best to bring in would it be IT, Andrew? Who would?
No, it's a company, right, a private company?
Well, we've been working through our IT department.
Right.
Yeah.
If there was any questions, he work with him in the next committee. I'd like to by next month, kind of put a pin in it. And move forward.
Because I think we need to at least get some things out of the way so we can really work on what our mission statement is.
Yeah, and I can do it either way. I mean, I can send it out to you all, and then
Okay.
Yeah, that would be
whichever is
fine.
easiest for you is fine, yeah. And the only other thing under items for updates is, even when we have grants, like this one that we were referring to, just, to make those updates, to include as well.
yeah,
And any progress that is being made on the DSR.
grants like the.
Like the
The
USDA
USDA
grant.
and
or,
the ones that Ellie may be
any other
talking
ones that come
about.
up along the
Mhm.
way.
Yeah, and I think that it would probably be best to start to get together a list of potential grants, and obviously there'll be pros and cons to each of them, so that we could weigh those. But yeah, I mean, I think that could be a separate, so a separate item. So that could be like, you'd like to have just a discussion of economic development opportunities potentially. Okay.
Yeah, the only other thing I see for a committee suggestion is, we talked about the placemaking plan a bit, and I think, it would be good, maybe we get a pulse check on, what that plan is, and maybe looking at what we have done and what we can do as it reflects in that plan. So we bring that back before the committee and just maybe review that and
The placemaking plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
To see what,
I will.
where we can go forward based on
This
that
isn't for
plan.
discussion right now, but I do have copies of the 2 PowerPoints that we provided for business before, so
Okay.
you all want to take those with you. One set. And this is- So they're actually.
Okay, I think we can actually, where we are, so the farmer's market, Marty, can you tell us, can we move on to that one?
So
We
I
are-
did want to get input on public comment of where you'd like to go with public comment. Would you like to have a section at the beginning of the meeting or during the meeting? I think if there's other folks in the room, if you're starting to call them in, I mean, I guess, is it going to be on a topic basis, or you just, I think it's an
I
effort
think
to try
it
to
can be.
control the meeting in the
Yeah.
timeframe. Yeah,
I think, let's play it by ear.
okay.
And I think if there was an item, for example, we're talking to Ellie,
Mm-hmm.
she's not part of the committee, right?
Right,
And
yeah.
so, I think there is a lot of information we can gather from people and maybe come to these meetings. And I think if we start losing control over the meeting, we can start putting some rules on it. But I think as of now, my personal feeling, I haven't, Casey can say, but I think if there is a topic we're speaking of, we should be able to see if we have enough time that we can open, maybe is there any comments regarding this or something like that. I don't know, that's my,
Yeah.
what I think. What about you?
So tend to do it towards the end of the meeting, if there's opportunity.
Well, I think more of a topic kind of thing. And I think if it really gets long, we can actually just have a time set up just for public comments. Because maybe there is, the problem with public comments that sometimes if you have it at the beginning,
People don't have a chance to
people don't
react
have
to
a
things.
chance to know what
Yeah,
you're talking
right,
about,
right.
and then if you put it at the end, like people like Ellie that has to go, or somebody else that has to go to something else because it's lunchtime, they won't have time to even speak. So I kind of want to give the ability for people to speak
That's great.
if they come.
Okay.
Because from my
don't
feeling
have
from the last central meeting that happened, not a lot of people came to this, so I kind of want to welcome participation to the meeting. And if we start seeing that they get too long, I think we really have to discuss about working with those people and see if we can make it later in the day for sure, because I do agree with Casey. There's a lot of people, most people like us have to work. I mean, we all have to, but obviously we're taking the time here, but it's really hard to take off.
Yeah.
To come to a meeting in the middle of the day.
All right, if there's no other committee suggestions, I appreciate you all, and your patience working through that list, because that helps us kind of.
So what happened to Hickok Street? I didn't hear under the monthly update.
So that would just, so this is really intended to, what would you like in the future, not necessarily kind of.
Well, first of all, I thought I was gonna get information about what's going on right now, because I know when is the project gonna start, what are we actually gonna be doing? Because, I mean, that project was supposed to be done several years ago, and here we are, and we still haven't broken ground.
Well,
yet.
right, I mean, we are behind, we're in the acquisition stage still of easements and such, and I can provide more information on that.
I would love to have more information,
Yeah.
because I thought that's what I was gonna hear. So, what impression do you have we're gonna talk about Hickok Street today?
Probably,
Well, I think it was just that, would you like that as a item on the agenda for an update each month, is really what.
I think that would be kind of an email item for now, just because there's so much of information of what's going on about the project. What do you think, Casey?
yeah, I agree. I think it's, as relevant, it can be a, update, otherwise I think to go via email is fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Marty?
You know, I always enjoy bringing these reports to you guys, but especially this year. The shopper total for this past season was 10,746. It averaged out to 488 people per week. So you saw a little the transition to the temporary site of the rec center. That compares to 6,809 total attendance the last year in Hickok,
2020.
or 2020.
Right.
Yeah, the last whole season. Sales total was 60,916. That's up to approximately 15,000 estimate from the year before. We had 24 original dates, 2 rain outs this past year, and 1 shut down early because of the weather. So we ended up with what was 21 dates. Vendor average was 20. That was up from 2020, 14. So that increased. Original goals for the year that we brought to this committee last year, going into last season, was increase the number of patrons through events like musical acts, accomplish this, present reliable vendors with items to convince them to keep coming. That was accomplished. More promotions, we accomplished that. More social media, more signage in the temp area. I don't know if you all noticed it, but we took the really nice metal signs from Hickok Street and moved them to the area around the rec center site. We also put closure signs on Hickok Street for those that did still come down here. The usage of EBD match, that's the match that we do up to $20. We accomplished that, and it increased over 150% last year. So we were lucky. There's 2 ways to get the grant monies for that. One is through a federal grant, the other one's through the state grant. We don't get either one of those because we're very lucky. We have a local grantee that had been giving us $500. They doubled the grant for this coming year to $1,000 because of the increase.
Community Housing Partners.
CHP. We increased more events, we had more kid events, we also saw more produce, especially tomatoes and other items not previously found at the market. We added 3 new produce vendors with tomatoes available for almost 2 months, which was a change there. We added 3 plant and flower vendors, and we cut back on the amount of arts and crafts vendors. One of the big things I'm still so happy about is a sustainability project with collecting plastic bags. First of all, we still had bags that we worked with the Department of Health, and we gave out the cloth bags throughout the year, encouraging not to use the plastic. In turn, we collected plastic bags on site. On this report, I have it as over 2,000 pounds. It's really over 2,400 pounds of plastic that we collected in 2 years. Kept it out of the waste stream, and we'll continue that next year. We have received, right now, we have 3 benches on site that were recycled by Trex, the company that takes the bags, and were given to us free. We have those at the rec center right now. Another one is on the way, and we're already eligible for another. We will, again, we stopped that and already doing it during the farmer's market, so we'll restart it in May.
So first of all, I'm grateful for all the work that you have put into the farmer's market. You have done a well job, well done. I guess one of the questions I had, even for Marty and Andrew and Casey and everybody here, it's what you see happening with the farmer's market in the future. I think one of the things, what do we want the farmer's market to do for the town? Because my understanding, the farmer's market was created to bring people downtown Christiansburg.
As part of the economic development.
Exactly.
Strategy.
So, obviously, you cannot be the amount of people that you'll get on this side of town just because of the ability to, the accessibility. You know, the Parks and Rec is like in the central of
It's our highway,
everything.
yeah, it's
I mean, anybody is, you can pretty much have anything out there, and it's gonna bring people, you know? So I think from the standpoint of bringing people there, we always have people at the rec center. I think it's great that we have this, don't get me wrong, I think it's fantastic that we have it there. But I think we need to really, really think about what is our long-term goal. Because if our goal is to bring people downtown, obviously the Hickok Street project is going to be connecting all these dots together, and we hope. But I do think that this is a lot larger than we think it is. We're going to be competing with the park, even within our own resources. I mean, we're grateful that the park is coming, but we're going to have a hard time if we have a hard time getting people downtown now, can you imagine when the park is here? Everybody's going to be directing themselves to that park. And I think we really, really need to bring people downtown, and how do we bring them together? That's one of the things that we have to provide downtown. I think we need to make an investment on making the downtown an area that has something special to bring to the people. And one of those things is definitely work on the bathrooms downtown park. So you at least have a bathrooms to use. I think we need to really, really work on the downtown park. How can you make it more inviting? You know, how can we create more parking spaces downtown? How can we create the atmosphere that people want to go downtown? And one of those things that I saw, and you're part of the Arts Committee, I really, really would like to see a lot of more murals downtown. So people will like to take a picture, and then at the same time, once they are getting a picture of themselves downtown, they're trying to go to a farmer's market that they had no clue that existed. So I think we have a tough job ahead of us, And I think it's planning to see what are we gonna bring to the downtown area that's gonna make it the place to be.
I think when you look at the farmer's market, you have to look at how it's evolved too, especially during COVID.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just necessarily something to attract people to a certain area. During COVID, all the farmers markets saw it, that it was an avenue to provide easier access to nutritious foods, however you want to clarify it. But to look at it during COVID, that it was 5 people handling your tomatoes at the grocery store. There's only 1 person in the farmers market. So the evolution of farmers markets, especially during COVID, has changed. It provides an avenue for the healthy foods and the nutritional foods and things like that that they might not be able to get. I mean, the prime example is the supply chain shortage.
Yeah, and it's also a teaching tool, obviously, you know, and it really goes together with the rec center. I think that that's another added thing that is so good for the rec center. It's not, because the rec center is there not to just provide recreational skills, but also learning skills, you know, things that you're going to be learning. So I do think that that's what I'm saying, like, it's going to be really hard to try to take away the farmers market from the rec center and bring it back downtown, but we also got to make sure that if we bring it back to downtown, we need to make it where people are not going, it's not going to go back to the numbers that used to be before. And I think that's a tough job for us, because we got to bring those people downtown.
Yeah, no, I think that it is a challenge. I mean, I do think we didn't really, and Casey could probably talk to this, didn't track numbers, you know. As what we had 1 person that worked the farmer's market, and now we have a dedicated person that counts. We didn't have that 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. So it's hard to compare numbers. I mean, the visual is, you know, is that, but I mean, I think Marty could make it, you know, successful anywhere it is. So I do think that, I mean, as part of the Hickok Street project, we will need to kind of figure out, and I will provide additional information, but basically we need to get a steering committee together to start to work on the final design of that would complement, so it would dovetail into the Hickok Street drainage project. You know, that'll be started. So once that's finishing up with those finishes on Hickok Street, that the farmers market structure can happen. If that's not the desire of council, then we need to pull back from that grant of $275,000.
Let me ask you something. As far as that creek that goes by Hickok Street on the very back, is that town property, or is that actually owned by the Alcorns as well?
So the creek that is, like if you're coming out of McAdoo's, it's right to the left there.
It's on the very back of Hickok Street. So if you're going, it's like right down the right.
So, yeah, so that is, so that's the creek that comes through from,
College
from
Street.
upstream.
Mm-hmm. It comes from College Street.
Well, it flows towards College Street. Yeah, right. So that, but it's not daylighted right now. It's not open.
It is open. It is open if you're in the back of McAdoo's.
McAdoo's, right. Okay, so that is on private property there, and it kind of straddles a couple different.
I just feel like there is so much opportunity lost in there.
Yeah.
Like, it can be a really, right now it doesn't look very pretty because it's got weeds everywhere and stuff, but I do think that one of the things that we can also do with the project on Hickok Street is not just providing a venue for the farmers market, but also a way to incorporate that and attach that to the downtown park, and also make that, beautify that place so it makes it look like there is a real creek that people can view and see, and maybe there's wildflowers that we can plant. And
and one of the ideas that came out of the Hickok Street Drainage Project, or really our downtown watershed project, was that was kind of a walkable, you know, greenway, so you could follow the creek through. And one of our challenges, you know, is to slow down the water through kind of more of a creek atmosphere than rather just pipes where we can avoid it, because that does slow down the water, which will help our Depot Park stream restoration project, because if we keep the speed of the water going through the creek, we're gonna wash that restoration project out eventually. So that is definitely something. So from an aesthetic standpoint, like right by the ABC store, that creek right there, that could be a lot more aesthetically pleasing. The area that you're talking about, right off of Commerce Street. That certainly could be, and I do think that there is a role at some point to play with trying to promote more downtown parking, and obviously that is a natural place.
On the farmer's market, I would point out that we were still under a lot of restrictions this year. There were still a lot of things we could not do. Hopefully, as things start getting better going into this May, we'll do more than we do.
I know you have done an excellent job. I've no questions about that. I'm just trying to plan ahead and trying to, how can we incorporate all these things and make sure that we bring back the farmers market, and it does what it was intended to do from the beginning.
And I think part of the discussion is, why can't Christiansburg compete in the Saturday market? And I think that
well, and I mean, we have the same topography from Blacksburg. If you look at the design of College Street and Hickok Street in Blacksburg, which is the same name as the streets, which is kind of funny, but you think about the creek that is, if you look at it, pretend there is no farmer's market right now. Before there was a farmer's market, it looks very similar to what we have downtown. Hickok Street, College Street, and then there is the other one. I mean, Main Street and everything is pretty similar to Christiansburg. Now, their Blacksburg one is doing great because they finished it, and it looks wonderful. In Christiansburg, we haven't started, but I think once we start working on these projects and beautify, and one of the positive things we have is we have a downtown park. They don't. And even, I mean, I'm not even against having some of those bronze statues downtown of kids with, I don't know, doing something. Because, I mean, that's kind of cool. There's a lot of parks you go around the country, and they have those bronze statues of kids or people sitting or doing stuff or whatever. That's kind of cool. Personally, to me, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, those public art opportunities, I think, are good. In a nutshell.
Was the clock fixed?
So we have a price tag for that. I do need to circle back around with Jim, and he was out today. We would have to get it, fixed, and it is, to replace it full, I think it would be $4,500. I think it may be similar to try to fix it. I mean, it's a pretty complex clock part, but is that something that, I can provide the additional information to you all, and then I know that you had mentioned before a separate clock tower, and I didn't know if that was the direction that you.
I think it would be fabulous.
Yeah.
I would love to see in the downtown things that will be attractive. And one of the things that you think about America is well known for beautiful signages and beautiful clocks. Clocks used to be the things that I used to watch on the TV, and I wanted to come to America. I mean, that's like the thing. Clocks were, clocks and trains. I used to be excited about that, and used to be really excited about even like cool buildings. But I think it would be really cool to have like water fountains are spectacular. I don't know. It's just something that can bring people to the downtown. So one of the perfect examples is like you go to Morristown, New Jersey, or the majority of historic places that you go to, they all have something that attracts not just the young, but the old. And that can be, chess games, that are made out of rock, or, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that bring people to the downtown, and right here, where do the old people go to? McDonald's or Hardee's? There is not a real community, but,
Yeah, the rec center, I mean, yeah.
well,
Everybody-
but
everybody
not
downtown
necessarily
perspective,
to,
yeah.
you know, I mean, winter time is not through the whole 12 months,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
think we need to bring people back outdoors
And have places to.
and have places
Yeah,
that they can
comfortable
sit
places,
down
yeah.
and they can enjoy nature and beautiful landscaping.
Mhm.
I mean, our public works people do an amazing job, and the rec center, they do a really good job with flowers and things like that. Let's bring that together into a center place that can be attractive. I just see, I would really like to see a lot more green spaces downtown. Not everything has to be buildings.
Yeah.
'Cause that's the sense that I'm getting now. There's a lot of buildings,
And you will
and
see,
some buildings that are not even finished. What do you think?
I'm sorry, yeah, I think we are looking at, you know, where are those green spaces, where are those gathering spaces along Main Street? I mean, our Public Works Department is gonna be starting on, just formalizing, you know, what's used quite a bit out here, the green space, right behind the bus stop, across the courthouse, right here on the other side of our parking lot, next to the Simmons Law Firm building. We've seen people from, you know, have a justice of the peace from the courthouse, get married there, and we have folks that picnic there, we have one table, but we're going to formalize that as a little pocket park area. I think our town square obviously has a lot of potential too. You have the Great Little Park, which is private land, but still green space.
Let
And
me
then
ask you
Hickok
something,
Street.
Casey. Where the boards are gonna be, what's gonna be in the middle? Do you guys have plans for anything in there?
Right now, it's just the storage boards. We don't have anything else other than the all around the side, around the circle of the sidewalk.
Will you guys would you be against an idea of having a clock down there? I mean,
That would just be something that has to go back to a museum and CI joint committee, basically,
Mhm.
that then would have to come and then circumvent and go back to this committee again later.
We did have the idea of having a sculpture of some sort, on the far end, you know, between the storyboards, but outside of the circle, not actually in. There was a discussion of a water fountain in the middle. I'll need to check with Jim, I believe we did run some conduit
I've
in the
been
middle.
bringing that water fountain idea to everybody. Maybe somebody will get it. It's just,
Yeah.
it's cool, you know? I don't know. There's always that child in me, I guess, that wants all those things, but anyway, but yeah, beautifying the town is definitely, one of our missions too. I see from my perspective that we need to work. First one, you have a high task right here. One is working with all the districts around the town. And for sure, one of the biggest things that I want to see us doing is have those business owners here, not people that don't have a clue what it means, not even running a business. I think, I really, really want to see some of those business owners, not just people in the community. I mean, it's great to have people in the community, but I do think that, you know, have at least some skin in the game.
Yeah, I think as we keep talking, I think if they're not able to get here, we may need to go to them as well.
Oh, yeah, and
Yeah, so
I don't
that's
think we
something
have
to
a
keep in
problem, I
mind
don't
as
have a
we-
problem
as
with
we
that.
move forward, yeah.
The last thing I'll add, with the beautification, I think that's very important, but I think that charge actually comes less from this committee and more from the Arts Advisory Board, as something that can be developed and then brought to this committee. Because that's largely what they will be doing, is beautification in the way of murals and installations and sculptures and all that sort of stuff. So I think that advisory board has that charge of being mindful of that, and then that is brought to this committee for discussion.
But I don't think that, a lot of, like even on those grants and stuff, can we possibly, and I'm speaking for the art committee, but I am not, so please don't take me as I'm just asking a question. as far as the monies and the grants that can be used by the art committee, is that something, can we, let's per se, there was the clock thing. Can that be paid with the money from the arts committee?
It was the one gracious donation that we've received was for $100,000, and really
Yeah.
the limitations there was that we do something that is arts related, away from Hickok Street.
But that's really not an arts related.
Yeah, and we always informally kind of set it aside that we would, and Casey was involved when working with the families on that, you know, getting I think the idea was that we would always at least let them know what we were doing. Not that they would have the final say in it, because
Yeah.
they understand that.
So for the structures and stuff like that, it's really part of central business, because it's a concrete item. So
Yeah, I mean,
like
those
our water
things can
fountain
be-
and things
it
and like
is-
that, and we
it takes
can
a lot of
definitely
money.
incorporate
Yeah.
arts committee here. I think we can always get their opinion for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think items like, they're just additional benches and things of that sort, that may, you know, that would be, you know, could be something that would be considered defined, but within, yeah, but I agree, you know, as far as art.
Okay. All right. Anything else? you
No, nothing else.
want? Okay. Thank you guys for coming out here today.
Appreciate it. Great to meet you.